Have you ever looked through a Catholic Bible and noticed it's bigger than yours? Or maybe you've heard from a non-Christian friend about the mysterious writings that were hidden away from the public instead of being put into our Bibles as part of some grand conspiracy to keep the truth hidden. These writings are collectively known as the Apocrypha. So, what is the Apocrypha? Why is it not part of my Bible? And should I even care? First of all, let me define what Apocrypha means, what we mean when we say that word. The word means hidden books. Yes, I am admitting that these books were hidden in a way, but it was a public act. It wasn't something in private. Now, these books and writings were created during the silent years between the New and the Old Testament, between 445 and 4 BC approximately. They were not written in Hebrew, but in Greek, and they first show up in the Greek translation of the Old Testament called the Septuagint. Now, depending on the list, there are about 18 books and writings that are considered to be part of the Apocrypha. Of these, the Catholic accepts 7 of them, putting the Old Testament at 46 books versus our 39. Now, here's a list of writings, and something to note about some of these. Bel and the Dragon is added to Daniel, so is Susanna. 1st and 2nd Esdras, along with the Prayer of Manasseh, are not accepted by the Catholics. Now, the Prayer of Manasseh is said to be that of the repentant evil king of Judah, described in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, where it says that it is recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. Why do Catholics consider them something to be in their Bible? The short answer is that they support some of their doctrines, such as purgatory and the praying of the dead, and the giving of alms as a way to earn forgiveness. Now, an interesting thing to note is that the Catholic inclusion of the Apocrypha as part of canon didn't happen until the Council of Trent in 1546, well over 100 years after Martin Luther rejected it from the Protestant Bible. So, why don't we include these writings, or some of them, in our Bible? Surely at least some of the writings got to be useful to us, right? There are 4 main reasons why they don't belong in the Bible. The first reason the Apocrypha does not belong in the Bible is that the Jews did not recognize it as scripture. The Jewish historian Josephus said, "We have not 10,000 books among us disagreeing and contradicting with each other, but only 22 books which contain the records of all time and are justly believed to be divine." The second reason that the Apocrypha doesn't belong in the Bible is that Jesus didn't recognize it as scripture. In Luke 24:44, he said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." Note, not a single reference to the apocryphal writings. And in Matthew 23:35, Jesus says, "And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zacharias son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar." Here, Jesus sets a time frame limit for the Old Testament scripture and prophets, ending before any of the Apocrypha was written. And the third reason that the Apocrypha doesn't belong in the Bible is that nowhere in the New Testament is it validated. The New Testament directly quotes the Old Testament 263 times and alludes to it 370 times, but 0 references to the apocryphal writings. And the fourth and final reason that the Apocrypha doesn't belong in the Bible is that it does not show itself to be inspired. Nowhere in the writings does it claim to be inspired. In fact, Ecclesiasticus, in the beginning, there is a disclaimer asking forgiveness for the errors it may contain. The text also contained many historical errors. Tobit claims to have lived through 2 different events which occurred more than 200 years apart. Judith claims Nebuchadnezzar ruled the Assyrians. It was actually Aphixiad. The Wisdom of Solomon claims that God started with the formless mass of creation, not from the nothingness we know. 2nd Maccabees describes the death of the same person in 2 completely different ways. The text also contains moral issues, including describing suicide as manly and noble, the use of magic potions for healing, and commending the murder of all the people in a town. There are also doctrinal errors, such as the praying of the dead, forgiving the sins by paying of alms, the pre-existent soul, kind of a reincarnation, and angels having families. Now, for these reasons, the Apocrypha has been rejected as scripture from Protestants by the beginning. The 39 article states that, "And the other books, as Jerome saith, the church doeth read an example of life and instruction of manners, but yet doeth it not apply them to establish any doctrine." The Belgic Confession, "The church may contain and read these books and learn from them as far as they agree with the canonical books, but they do not have such power and virtue that one could confirm from their testimony any point of faith or of the Christian religion, much less can they detract from the authority of the other holy books." And Luther said, "These books that, though not esteemed like Holy Scripture, are still both useful and good to read, He removed them from the Bible and put them in a completely separate collection. Now, Luther did say that the Apocrypha is both useful and good to read. So what possible benefits could there be from these writings if it was rejected by so many people as not being scripture? Well, I can think of 3 examples. The first is learning the history of the silent 400 years. In the Apocrypha, you'll learn about the events such as the Hellenization crisis, the Maccabean revolt, and the writings that demonstrated the messianic fervor that we saw in the New Testament writings. The second is there are some theological truth buried in it, such as the prayer of Azariah. Thirdly, understanding what is there and what isn't is useful when the topic comes up when talking with your Catholics or unbeliever friends who are talking about the hidden books. Now, thanks for tuning in today. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns or comments in the comments below, and I will try to answer them. And until then, God bless.